and fell to the Pelicans in OT 120-115 with Phil Stephen A. Rightfully so. So tell me this, who do you think's most to blame for the Celtics' struggles?
Him and Danny Ainge. The fact of the matter is Danny Ainge, felt like he had the team in place. He didn't need to really go for it, go for the chip or whatever. There's no shame in trying to build a team around Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but you did that, all right, and it's not panning out right now. And I have to look at Brad Stevens because, listen, I like Brad Stevens. I think that he's an exceptional basketball mind. I think that when he first arrived, he proved himself to be one of the young, innovative coaches in the game of basketball. He's a class act, class personified. I genuinely like him, and I genuinely respect him as a coach. And I think anybody who knows anything about basketball has to respect him. But in the end, when you have a star like Jason Tatum, and make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, that brother is a star. Jason Tatum is a star. And guess what? So is Jaylen Brown. The bottom line is you should be better than a 500 team. Now, of course, we got to look at Kemba Walker. He's got to play better. He hasn't been consistent. He's been injury prone. We get all of that. That's played the role. But in the end, he's got to play better. It's up to Brad Stevens to figure that out. And when I look at Brad Stevens, here's what I see. I see a guy that knows the game of basketball, that can coach his butt off. My question is the motivational skills that he has available to him in his arsenal. Are you the kind of guy that can galvanize the troops and maximize the potential around you? Of course, he's respected. Of course, we look at him and know that he knows the game of basketball. He knows what the hell he's doing. But I'm talking about that leader of men that's able to peel something out of you that you might not even know is inside of yourself. The great coaches figured out a way to do that over the years. It would be Phil Jackson, the Zen master. It would be Pat Riley, the winner within. It would be Mr. Fix-It, the great Larry Brown, who doesn't get mentioned enough, who's a Hall of Famer. You know, the Chuck Daly's of the world, God rest his soul, and what he was able to do with the Detroit Pistons. The list goes on and on. The Greg Popovich, of course, we can't forget to mention him. It's something about you as a coach where you shove aside the X's and O's because everybody knows what the other is doing, that's able to peel something out from inside of you and say, okay, I'm going to maximize the potential, even the potential you didn't know you have. That is the element I have not seen from Brad Stevens. And I think the Celtics have reached a point where now it's called upon to find out whether or not Brad Stevens has that little extra something in him to get that little extra something from his players, the players around Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I have not seen that yet, and as a result, I think you're going to hear a lot of noise about Brad Stevens. If this stuff continues in Boston with these guys struggling, you're going to hear a lot of people talking about why have we raved about Brad Stevens so much. They're going to be asking that question, fair or unfair. You got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. This is the sport of basketball. You should not be a 500 team with two studs like that.
I don't think this is a Brad Stevens issue. You want to blame someone off the court, you can blame Danny Ainge. And Danny Ainge blamed himself a couple days ago. He talked about roster construction. He may have to make a move. I'm going to get to that in a second. You want to blame someone on the court, you can blame Kemba Walker. Because, look, he has a bad knee. Kemba has a bad knee. And he is known as a tough guy and a real leader. And so my sense is that a lot of guys probably wouldn't be playing if Kemba's playing like this as a result of the knee. But of course, he wants to play through. Look, the Celtics as constructed, they're a good team, and it's not that they're not a deep team. Like Robert Williams that's a find. You know, he can really long and he can play defense, and Tice is a good player, and they have good players. Marcus Smart, who's out right now, is a good player, but these are all essentially defensive players. When you look at the roster, it's not deep offensively. You have two excellent wings in Tatum and Brown, and you're right, Stephen, that's more than a lot of teams have. But a lot of other teams would have more depth in terms of various players who can score. Obviously not on that level, but who can go get you some points, go get you some buckets. The Celtics don't have that. They're really relying on Kemba to be that other guy offensively. And when he's not, where do the Celtics get the points from? It's hard. You know, like where do the Celtics get the points from if not Tatum and Brown? And it's not like Tatum and Brown aren't giving you the points. It's not like Brad Stevens isn't doing things to create opportunities for them and to kind of optimized to maximize what they have. He is, and they are. They're great, and everyone knows it. But who else is there? It's supposed to be Kemba. If Kemba is right, we talk about big threes. That's a legit big three if Kemba's right. He has not been Kemba Walker. And when Kemba shoots like he does last night, you're not going to win. A couple games ago, then you might win, right? That's what it is. I can't look at Brad Stevens and say that's on him. I'll say I don't even like to say it's on Kemba because I think he's hurt. But if you want to blame someone who's actually playing, you can point to Kemba Walker. When he doesn't hit shots, very tough for them to win. You want to point to someone off the court, Danny Ainge.
Well, first of all, you can look at Kemba. Clearly, he's not 100% healthy. Just looking at his shots on the highlights alone, you see him leaning heavily and favoring his left leg heavily, trying to stay off that right leg. That's number one. But number two, and more importantly, let me tell you something. Your points would be valid if we're talking about championships. I get that. It's not valid because we're talking about a team that's at 500. They should not be a 500 team. They should not be giving up 24-point leads from the third quarter on. If you were good enough to be up 24 points, you should be good enough to hold on to the lead. Not that that's the kind of stuff doesn't happen in the NBA because we understand that it does. But there are too many occasions where we've looked at the Boston Celtics who have been in games, who have had leads, who have blown leads, who have just fallen apart. And we wonder what the hell is going on. And the reality is that that's Brad Stevens' job to fix it. When you got 30 teams in the NBA, this is a very big coveted job. A lot of people want opportunities to be a head coach in the NBA. And if you have a situation where you've got two studs like that, you got to know how to close. You got to know how to finish. Now, they've been to a couple of conference finals. We get that, and Brad Stevens can coach. Again, nobody is questioning his coaching ability. What we're saying is, in the end, the personnel that you have available, are you maximizing the potential of all those guys around Tatum and Brown? Because Tatum and Brown are going to be who they are. Who are the other dudes that are going to step up for you? What kind of system do you have? How are you utilizing the personnel that you have available to you, et cetera, et cetera? Anybody else we'd be asking that question about? Why does Brad Stevens get a pass in terms of asking those questions? That's the bottom line.
I wouldn't say he gets a pass. I think if you just analyze it, you have two guys you could look at to say, like, what's the Celtics? I'll be more specific, in terms of your point. I think it's late game collapses, right? Because it happened again, and this time in a huge, obvious way. Another late game Celtics collapse. And we can look at defense, but really, it's the organizer of the offense. It's the guy who's making the decisions. Marcus Smart is out, and Kemba Walker's hurt. I think really that's what's happening as far as that goes.
Yeah, but they started off even before Marcus Smart got hurt. They started off the season. We didn't like what we were seeing from Boston at the very, very start of the season. And then we blamed the bubble. We knew Kemba was out, but we blamed the bubble. And such a short, the season ends in September for them, and then they come back and they play in December. No, a whole bunch of other coaches don't get that excuse. Brad Stevens not going to get it either. And I respect him. I respect the hell out of him. You got to do it.
Boston ranking outside of the top 10 in both offense and defense right now. Last season, they were outside the top 10, and then right now they're not even in the top 10. And let me do this again. They're outside, of the top 10 right now. Last season, they were inside the top 5 in both. It's Monday. We'll get smoother as the show goes. Speaking of collapses, Carson Wentz, fellas, says farewell to Philly. Is it fair to call Wentz a bust with the Eagles, paging Max Kellerman and the rookie Anthony Edwards looking like a
NBA resides in Brooklyn, New York. It's official. It's official. That's one thing we're going to get into. The other thing is going to be Carson Wentz being an Indianapolis coach. We got some things to talk about in regards to that. And, of course, after watching Anthony Edwards with that nasty dunk over the weekend, about the greatest dunks of all time, the greatest facials. What's your choice? I'll let you know mine. Max will have an opinion, too, I'm sure. You know that. First takes in the house. Started a new week. Let's go. Where's my DJ?
Put that camera on me.
Can't believe what I just heard.
Are you good or bad at what you're doing? You're terrible. You're the worst.
Something is wrong with you.
This is the definition of
Thursday, the best show on television.
Stop right there. He's the best.
Definitely co-sign that sentiment.
Thanks for tuning in to First Take.
Start the damn show.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into First Take on a Monday. Max Kellerman, Stephen A. Smith. I'm Molly Karen Rose. Hope you all had a fabulous weekend. Gentlemen, we got plenty to talk about, or what? So let's dive right into it. We're starting in the association. BK, stand up. That's all I got to say. The Brooklyn Nets, fellas, taking down who? Oh, Kawhi and the Clippers. And who? LeBron and the Lakers. The Nets have the second best record in the East and the best record against teams above 500. Max, did the Nets prove to you that they are the best team in the association?
Not yet. No, they didn't. Now, they're going to be a problem. At the very least, the Nets are a problem. And without, once KD and Kyrie and James Harden and Joe Harrison, all these guys are healthy and playing together, they're only going to get better. They're going to be a problem. But have they proved they're the best because they beat a Lakers team without AD? Because they beat a Clippers team where Paul George is on minute restrictions and James Harden gets away gets a call that he didn't deserve after a flop? No, they didn't prove that. Stephen A., I noticed you're not talking about the Knicks this morning, by the way. After all that talk last week, I noticed we're focusing on the Nets. Yes, the Nets are going to be the greatest offensive team of all time, if they're not already. By the end of this season, they will be, by not a little bit, the greatest offensive team of all time. There's only one team in the NBA that is elite, especially when AD is there, on both ends of the floor. Elite, offense and defense, and that's the Lakers. The Lakers are the reigning and defending NBA champions. They basically went wire to wire last year. Gentlemen swept the West 4-1, 4-1, and didn't go even 7 games in the finals against a very plucky Heat team. That's this Lakers team. Did they get better or worse in the offseason? They got better. They got better in the offseason. The defending champions, who never got extended last year's playoffs, who went wire to wire, got better in the offseason. Now, of course, all of this assumes AD's health. If AD is healthy, the Nets and the Lakers will be an epic finals. But I'm not ready to sit here today and say, yeah, it's the Nets. They should be favored. No, the defending champion Lakers, all roads to the championship go through the defending champion Lakers if AD is healthy.
Well, again, if AD is healthy, that's the caveat there. But I don't believe he's going to be 100% for the rest of the season. I think that eventually when he comes back, he's still not going to be 100%, and he's going to be playing relatively timid. He's going to have to watch his lateral movement. He's going to have to watch sharp cuts and things of that nature. He's not going to be himself, and that's the reason that I've got the Brooklyn Nets as the best team in basketball. You got to remember, they've won 5 straight. They've won 6 straight. Think about the road that they went through. They beat Golden State. They beat the Clippers twice. They've beaten the Los Angeles Lakers. When you look at this team right now and the way that they're flowing offensively, they are a juggernaut. Their defense has improved marginally at the very least. They're 12-4 against teams 500 or better, which is the best in the NBA. They've beaten every team in this league that matters. They've beaten Boston. They've beaten Indiana. They've beaten both LA teams. They've beaten Golden State. They've beaten everybody, okay? And that's with their roster being relatively sporadic, because whether Kevin Durant was there with Kyrie and no Harden, whether Harden was there with Kevin Durant but no Kyrie, whether Kyrie and Harden was there with no KD. The 3 of them haven't played but a few games together. It doesn't matter. When you look at them right now, even if Kyrie was out, Harden and KD could potentially win you a championship. I don't think Harden and Kyrie could do to win you the chip, but I think they could get you out of the East potentially the way that they're playing basketball right now. Harden's level of unselfishness can't be applauded enough. And watching Kyrie last night, let me tell you something right now. Kyrie's the best show in basketball. I'm talking about in terms of box office attraction, walking through the turnstiles to see a show. The things that this brother does with a basketball is absolutely sensational. And the level of unselfishness that he is showcasing, he deserves a lot of credit for that. Now, in the fourth quarter, he only shot 2 of 9 yesterday, 0 of 4 from three-point range. So there was a little hero ball going on, and we understand that that's something that can happen if they're going to win the chip. But I'm looking at the shots that he has set up for other people. He's been absolutely sensational. And defensively, they have stepped up. And again, the unselfishness with him and Harden getting the Joe Harrises, the Jeff Greens, the TLCs, and others involved, the Bruce Browns. I mean, they are distributing the basketball offensively in terms of Nash with Mike D'Antoni. We've seen a positive impact. There isn't a better team in basketball. And by the way, the one game they had against Utah this year, they beat Utah by 34. I'm just telling you right now, these brothers look absolutely, positively special. And I don't see anybody outside of a healthy Lakers squad with Anthony Davis standing in their way. And he better be 100%, or even that ain't going to be enough.
Welcome to the Kyrie is the best show in basketball party. I've been saying he's the best show in basketball, but the difference is what you pointed out. They're winning. Kyrie has always been a great show. Even last year when things weren't great and you're like, well, at least Kyrie is putting on a show early.
That's not true.
What's that?
No, it was inconsistency, and Max, you're living proof of it because you spent more time, and Molly is an eyewitness to this. You spent more time talking about what a disruptive force Kyrie was than what a showstopper he was.
That's why the more important thing. Look, the show is no doubt. He's spectacular. He's doing it in service.
I'm talking now, night in, night out. Now
he's been, but he's put up numbers where you have to do it night in and night out, and he looks spectacular and wows the crowd, but. Really, teams have functioned worse too often with him. And the difference this year, and he's played on teams with good players, like once he left Cleveland, very good players. But those guys were not yet great in Boston.
There's no evidence of that other than Boston.
What evidence of what?
In terms of teams playing bad with him. The only evidence of that was Boston.
No, Cleveland until LeBron showed up was one of the most losing franchise in the NBA. I understand
he just got in the league. He was a rookie. He was the first 2 years of the league.
That's okay. They were still one of the worst teams in the NBA.
They got better each year he was there.
And on Brooklyn, the team did not function better with him than without him, and they were not a great team. That's the reality of Kyrie Irving. It's not the reality anymore. It's not the reality anymore. He's playing with other great players, not just other good players. And it's made a huge difference in his game because he trusts them differently, obviously. And because of that, you can point out Harden's unselfish play. That's true. Harden, since he's been in Brooklyn, has been as good as anyone in the league. But really, Kyrie remains the key in that way. Kyrie is the one. Is he going to play too much hero ball, et cetera, et cetera? He hasn't. Kyrie has figured it out with Harden, and they look amazing. And once KD comes back, they're going to be incredible. Who's the best player in the NBA? Still LeBron James. And AD has a case to be the second or top three, obviously top five. The Lakers, and the difference is the Lakers do it on both ends of the floor because AD came on this show last year and told us, I challenged LeBron. That's what, defensively, that's why LeBron, his defense is more similar to what it was in Miami than what it was in Cleveland since AD got to the team. And that two-way play on the Lakers makes them the favorites if everybody's healthy until further notice.
First of all, you're wrong. Kyrie Irving and the Cleveland Cavaliers got better each year that he was there. After LeBron left, he was a rookie, #1 overall pick. They got better each year that he was there before LeBron got there, and they went to the final. I'm saying they got better each year. He was a rookie, and they got better each of the 3 years that he was there before LeBron James arrived. That's #1. #2, make up your mind about Anthony Davis. #2, #3, #5. Which one is it? #2. Okay, that's the bottom line. #3.
Well, you could argue anywhere between 2 and 5.
When you look at what I'm saying, you can argue. Pick one. I got him top 3. All I'm saying is you said 2, 3, or 5. That's what I'm talking about because we talk about Joel Embiid later. Let's not forget that in the show. Then we got a situation right now when you look at the Nets and you're talking about D'Antoni and you're talking about Nash and you was talking about their defense. And I told you back then, I said, excuse me, Max, all they have to do is improve marginally. All they have to do is improve marginally on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, they're going to be unselfish. They're going to share the ball and watch how they look. This is what it is. And so now they're going up against teams. They're playing a complete game, even without one of their weapons, their best weapon, which is Kevin Durant. And their Brooklyn Nets are the best team in basketball right now.
The Brooklyn Nets are going to have the greatest offense of all time if they don't already. You got to prove you're the best.